Thank you to Stephanie, and thank you for all of you for being here today on a Saturday and paying attention to issues that are critically important for the state of Ohio. Thank you for all of your activism. Thank you for all of your involvement. Because without all of you holding legislators accountable in Columbus, the good Lord only knows what we would do without you paying attention.
Amen.
I've been in the legislature for almost 6 years. Being invited to speak today was quite a privilege because I got to reflect back on those 6 years, put it on paper, and this speech is probably going to be pretty therapeutic for me, given what we've all gone through in Columbus. So just a brief background on myself. My family's from Eastern Ohio, West Virginia. I was actually born in West Virginia. Coal mining, steel mills, hardworking blue-collar family background. Like Stephanie said, I've been married to my wife for 15 years, 3 daughters. I think Tom mentioned this earlier. It was very well said, what he pointed out. Like Tom, for myself, I go to the doctor, never question my doctor, sincerely believe, well, this guy or gal has my best interest in mind at all time, and I think they do for the most part. What you don't realize is institutionally what goes on behind the scenes in making the laws and crafting the policy of what those doctors learn and what's put in front of them until you get into the legislature. For the longest time, I never really thought twice about it. Thankfully, my wife, who suffers from some chronic pain, always thought about it. So when we got married, she always questioned the advice she was given from a doctor, the medical industry. When we had kids, she was always there questioning that with the expertise. And she and I would always get into it, like, you're always asking all these questions and you're never doing what they tell us to do. And she's like, I don't believe any of this stuff is accurate. I mean, I've done my own research, I've thought for myself, and I'm like, okay, well, all right. I trust you, and I trust that you've done the research and you have our family's best interest in mind, so thankfully she did that. And I'll never forget when we had our 3rd daughter, Catherine, and we were in the hospital, and there was a nurse, a very sweet nurse, came in, and she had a mask on. Now, this was in 2019, this was during COVID, and I asked her, I was like, why are you wearing a mask? And she was like, well, I haven't got the flu shot, and I don't want to. I said, well, do you have the flu? And she's like, no, I don't have the flu. Are you symptomatic? No, I'm not symptomatic, I have to wear this mask. I was like, well, that's dumb. I'm like, what about the other nurses? And well, they all got the flu shot. I said, well, can't they get the flu still? And she was like, yeah, they can. And I was like, well, this seems pretty stupid. I mean, I'm an attorney. I'm just thinking logically, like, this doesn't make any sense. So that was my first run-in with the medical hysteria that we saw during COVID. I'm going to take you through COVID really quick, and ultimately I want to get to the point that you, as the grassroots, are vitally important to the success of liberty and freedom issues in the state of Ohio. COVID starts, 2020. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's going on here. I came to the State House specifically to work on workforce issues. I wanted our kids to have good careers, good jobs, be trained for those jobs, whatever they were, whether they wanted to be a lawyer, doctor, welder, electrician, whatever. Let's get kids trained, let's get them educated and get them into a good paying job. I wasn't there to work on any medical freedom issues. In fact, if you would have asked me, what is medical freedom? I said, oh, freedom to pick your doctor? I was not educated, which is fine. But during COVID, you saw healthcare become politics. And that, to me, was incredibly scary. And I'm not going to get into any one medical provision over another or debate over another. The underlying principle of a doctor or an individual not being able to question, think for themselves in our state and country, or say, maybe this isn't the right way to do it, as a lawyer was incredibly problematic to me. And I didn't really weigh in one way or the other on whether you were right or you were right, but I can tell you this, it is your right as an American citizen to have an opinion and have a question on that issue. Admittedly, I think, during that process, we failed horribly as a state. The fact that we don't have medical freedom legislation passed in the state of Ohio is an indictment on the whole Ohio General Assembly. And I hold myself accountable too, because I'm in the Ohio General Assembly. So I served down there. I've been there for 6 years. But we have Senate Bill 22, and that reins in the executive branch from issuing health orders. Good. Should have done way better. We should have right to try in Ohio. We should have conscientious right to refuse in Ohio. The bills that we're still working on in 2025. If you didn't see what was going on in 2020 and how your ability as an American was cut off to pick your health care, to say what medical treatment you did or did not get, and how that was absolutely threatened, and you don't think we as a legislature should be doing something about that now, I don't know what to tell you. In the words of what Tom said, I think you need voted out. True. That was, like I said, very therapeutic. Thank you for listening. But I think, you know, I really went back, like I said, my family was from coal mining, steel mills, blue-collar Ohio. And I went and looked back, and I'm like, okay, so the same decision makers that shipped our jobs overseas with NAFTA, that made China a most favored nation state in terms of trade and economics, that crashed our economy with bad lending policies in 2008, that fought President Trump legally and said he was a Russian asset in 2016, shut our economy down again in 2020, stuffed woke nonsense down our throat for the last 5 years. They now want to control your healthcare decisions. I said, no, thank you. So again, back to the point that we need to get these 2 bills done this General Assembly, and here's what you can do as grassroots organizers. One, you have to have hope. You have to have hope because this is a depressing business. I'm just going to say the fact of what this is. And there's going to feel like days where we're losing, and it's not going to be possible, and the things aren't going your way, right? But, you know, as a Christian, I reflect on Scripture often, and Christ tells us that in this world you're going to have troubles, but fear not, because I've conquered the world. So we know we win in the end. But as a grassroots group, you have to accept the fact that this is a fight that will always be ongoing. We're never going to achieve perfection here on this earth. It's not going to be possible. But we still need to be eternally vigilant and in the fight and in the process. So that's the first thing. We have to accept the framework of what we're fighting in. Because I think if you tell yourself, well, if we get this bill passed, and this bill passed, and this, and this, then it'll all be done. It's never going to be done. Because the other side that wants to suppress your freedom and liberty, and they want to control our society, they want to control you as American citizens, they are not going to stop. So neither can you. So the first thing is to just accept we have to have hope. We also have to realize what we're working in terms of a framework, and kind of accept that. And in terms of acceptance, too, accept the difficulties and the bumps in the road that come along the way. I can't tell you how many times I've texted Jennifer or Tim or Stephanie or somebody saying, I can't believe this happened. Unbelievable. I mean, can you da-da-da-da-da, this, and this. We're going to have difficulties. I asked my Erie County chairman the other day, I said, hey, our Lincoln Day dinner, who's been to a Lincoln Day dinner in here with the Republican Party? You should all go to the Lincoln Day dinners. I said, hey, I want to speak at our Lincoln Day dinner, just a few remarks. We're going to have several hundred people there. They're all my voters and constituents. I want to have the opportunity to address them. Well, that'll be $1,000 for 3 minutes, sir, out of your campaign account. What? Difficulties. But like, all right, well, you know what? I'll find another way to reach those people. And I remember what you just told me, by the way, too. So we're always going to have those difficulties. The biggest thing you can do is to make your voice heard to your elected officials and show up. Show up to events, show up to Lincoln Day dinners, show up to Central Committee meetings, ask for meetings in their office, call their office, text, whatever you can do to say, hey, what are you doing for XYZ issue? Because I can tell you during COVID, the litany of emails, phone calls, messages that I got to my office, rightfully, that I was happy to receive, were endless. And you know what? As we went forward, the only thing I remember in the back of my mind was, I remember Ron telling me about this issue, and that was really important to him. Or, you know, I remember Steve and Hallie having this issue mentioned at their event that they had 2 weeks ago at Erie County America First, and that was really important to that group. So your legislators listen to you, whether they admit it or not. You're in the back of their mind. And when they're going to press that button, they're going to say, this is either going to really upset so-and-so and so, and that's not a good thing, or I'm going to vote with the constituents back home, and I'm happy that I did that. Those are the good legislators. So even though it may seem like you don't have any control, and it may seem dark at times, continue to show up, and you can't stop, because the other side will not either, and neither should you. I met Stephanie 2023.
You met at the Lincoln Day dinner.
That's right.
Where's the Sanders?
So a really good friend of mine in the legislature, he's no longer there, is Scott Swearingen. Amazing legislator, had a great legislative career. Fought for all the right issues. His heart's always in the right place. When this whole COVID nonsense was going on in the state of Ohio, we were trying to get the vaccine bill done. There were numerous iterations of this. It was a terrible disaster. But Scott was texting me, someone said, who are you texting with about this issue? Well, Stephanie Stott. Who's that? No idea. Well, she runs Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. Oh, okay, well, I don't know that. He's like, you don't know that group? What do you mean? So Scott was the first one to clue me into Stephanie, and then I started paying attention to the bills. Like I said, I didn't come to Columbus to do medical freedom issues. And that didn't mean that I don't want to, it's just not on the radar for most legislators, especially back in 2019, before we went through the whole COVID nonsense. If we did not have Stephanie Stock in the state of Ohio, these issues would not matter to any legislators. I can tell you.